What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Starkvine, joined always by my main man, Steven Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. I am live from the 2024 NFL Combine. Steven is back home enjoying the city of Pittsburgh. I heard it's a little chilly there. It's 85 degrees here in Indianapolis, and I packed nothing but sweaters and jeans. So we're limited. We're limited on the light wear, but I think we'll make it through, or we'll lose a couple of pounds. How you feeling, my friend? And is it warm? Please tell me it's warm there.
It's all right. Sun is shining. We got some crazy thunderstorms today, like shook my house type of thunder today. But
wow,
I am feeling a little jealous though, because the last time when we were in Indianapolis last year, it was freezing cold, dude. It was 20
really
degrees.
was.
Like you could barely leave the convention center without freezing your butt off. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I'm not there, it's 65 degrees. Everyone's hanging out. People wearing shorts. Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
They were wearing, there are a couple of people in shorts. You want to know who is not in shorts? And we mentioned this man many times on the podcast. I think all Steelers fans know who he is, and they know him by the shorts. Mark Caboli, not in shorts, was stunned.
Must be a formal occasion. Must be a big day.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Huge day. I thought he was presenting an award or something. Guy's got jeans on. That was the first thing I said to him when I saw him. But it is nice and warm down here. Indianapolis is a good time. So far, not much happening for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Omar Khan did not speak today. He had a death in the family, decided to leave Indianapolis, obviously. Still waiting on word on if he will return to Indy and speak to the media at some point this week. But for right now, he is to be decided. Our thoughts and prayers obviously go out to him and the Khan family. The rest of the general managers, a handful of coaches spoke today. I tried to walk around, get as many Steelers tidbits as humanly possible. Let me tell you, that's really difficult when there are 40 other reporters standing around you asking about the team that this person coaches and or manages. And I'm sitting there like, well, also, what are your thoughts on Mike Tomlin? And he's like, who are you, man? What are you even asking me? But we got a couple of them. The Steelers might be missing out on 2 top free agent cornerbacks. There is another quarterback that we could toss in there possibly as an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and some news and notes around the AFC North when it comes to the Steelers' new offensive coordinator, their head coach, and a linebacker that they just signed the other day. We'll start with Jalen Johnson and L'Jarius Sneed, probably the 2 biggest cornerbacks that the Steelers could approach in free agency today. They got a bit of bad news. Chicago Bears general manager Ryan Poole said that they are in conversations with Jalen Johnson, that they're positive conversations as of right now, and they're hoping to get a deal done as soon as possible. And L'Jarius Sneed, on the other hand, has been recruited to the Philadelphia Eagles, or is being recruited to the Philadelphia Eagles by a number of his former teammates, according to Tony Pauline, NFL Insider. You hear both of those things. Let's start with Jalen Johnson getting a deal done. Does it shock you? And do you think it's a spot where the Steelers at this point may be missing out on their top guy?
Well, as far as Jalen Johnson goes, I don't think anyone from the Bears is going to say, yeah, man, these negotiations are going awfully. Like, we have no shot of getting this guy, of keeping this guy in Chicago. So I'm sure they're given a really good front-facing position. They're telling everyone that things are going well. Who actually knows? I'm sure there will still be opportunities for the rest of the league to court Jalen Johnson, because I doubt there's really a team out there that wouldn't want a guy like that. So I'm not counting the Steelers out just yet. I know it'll be a hefty price tag, but especially with the way the salary cap went up, I don't think you can count anyone out, really. I mean, I know the Bears have, I think they have the most cap space in the league, if not,
I'm
their top
sure.
3. Yeah, if not their top 3 or 5 or something like that. So they're going to have money to throw around, but so do a bunch of other teams now. Like, they're not the only ones who do. So I'm not counting the Steelers out on Jalen Johnson yet. Same thing with L'Jarius Sneed. I think that salary cap increase really opened the door for a lot of different teams to maybe take bigger swings in free agency. So, like I said, not counting the Steelers out yet, but you can't ignore that they are fighting a bit of an uphill battle to get some of these big name free agents. So, and the thing for me is, the biggest thing is that there are only a few free agent corners that I think the Steelers can add and really make obvious upgrades to their defense. Like they've got to
Mhm.
be elite guys in order for the Steelers to consider them, and then for those guys to be clear and obvious upgrades. So, um, it does seem like the corner market's thinning out a little bit, but I think there was already only a real upper echelon of guy. Snead and Johnson were obviously there, but I think Kenny Moore is one of those guys too that
Yeah.
you might consider that would be upgrades for this defense. So, and I feel like past those top 3 or 4 or so, you're going and you're thinking NFL draft, and you're feeling much better about those guys.
I agree. I think there are a lot of options in the NFL draft. I think you could look at it and say Jalen Johnson and L'Jarius Sneed, cool, and we'll talk about L'Jarius Sneed here in a second, but good names. I think good names to have, but maybe for the price tag that you're going to get one of these guys, and don't get me wrong, like Jalen Johnson's an all-pro, L'Jarius Sneed's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. These guys know how to win, and they're very good in the NFL level. If you're just looking at options and kind of security moving forward, the NFL draft's the way to go. Also, and maybe I'm just skeptical here, but there's a long list of corners in the NFL that are superstars somewhere and then go somewhere else, sign a major payday, and they kind of fall off. And you do take that risk sometimes with these young guys going into their second contract, and maybe the Steelers don't want to take that risk. You hear L'Jarius Sneed being recruited to the Philadelphia Eagles by a couple of his former Louisiana Tech teammates. Let me ask you this. Eagles, obviously Super Bowl contenders. That's a team that's built to win, and that obviously carries some weight. Do 3 guys from LA Tech, the only one who I could really name off the top of my head is Boston Scott, hold any ground to the Mike Tomlin effect and possibly getting phone calls from TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, probably Patrick Peterson, and then Mike T himself?
Yeah, I think those Louisiana Tech guys are going to stay friends whether or not L'Jarius Sneed signs there or not. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much that's going to really influence his decision. I think the other thing, I mean, to be quite honest, like I don't look at the Eagles as the most stable situation in the world.
No.
Like yeah, they have tons of talent. Yeah, they are a Super Bowl contender, but I mean, it seems delicate. It seems like that thing could kind of fall apart at a moment's notice. That's not to say they will. I'm just saying that possibility is out there. They are not, I think, as sure a thing. And I think this past season proved it. That second half of this year proved it. They are not as sure a thing as some other teams around the league. So you can have your concerns about the Steelers. You can have your concerns about any other team in the league. I don't think the Eagles are a slam dunk if you're like, I need to go win a Super Bowl right now. Like, this team's obviously going to get me, even within a game or two of the Super Bowl. I don't think that's a given with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I don't think the Louisiana Tech connections, and I don't think even the fact that the Eagles have a more talented roster really takes the Steelers out of the running at all, because the Steelers, I think, have a ton, like you alluded to with Mike Tomlin, like and TJ Watt and Patrick Peterson and all those other guys. Like there's a lot to like about the Steelers too.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think when Mike T calls, and it doesn't matter. Like, I think maybe Andy Reid might be the only other coach in the whole NFL that if he calls, you go, all right, Mike T, Andy Reid, Chiefs, Steelers, I think I'm going to Kansas City. I think everybody else, if Mike T gives you a phone call, you're like, man, dude, Mike Tomlin wants me though. But it's Mike Tomlin. And I think that holds so much ground. I do agree with you with the Philadelphia Eagles, not the most stable situation in the NFL. Doesn't think that holds any ground. I also think that come free agency, depending on how the Steelers quarterback situation goes, not quarter, maybe free agents are more poised to go to Pittsburgh because they look at it and say, well, they have a quarterback, and maybe that's a team that's on the rise. Maybe that's a team that could make some splash. And on top of that, like if you're going below, like if you're getting rid of, if you're losing your place in Kansas City, everything else is a downgrade. Like you're not going anywhere else going, well, my Super Bowl chances are just as high as the team. Like, no, you're searching for a contract. You're searching for a good situation. I think the Steelers match both of those. I don't think I'd be super worried about that one. I'm way more worried about Jalen Johnson than the L'Jarius Sneed situation. Would you go L'Jarius Sneed over some of these first, second round options in the NFL draft, especially, say guys like Kool-Aid McKinstry or Cooper DeJean, who is quickly climbing up to be my favorite prospect in this draft? are sitting there at the 20, maybe even early second round where the Steelers might be able to make a move?
Well, I would love to hear about why you love Cooper DeJean so much these days. But we can talk about that later. I think I would go Snead over just because he's the proven guy. And
Yeah.
I think my attitude about the Steelers this offseason as they kind of approach the draft and free agency is kind of now or never, to be quite honest with you. I just look at a defense that is getting older, a defense that, they've got some young pieces, don't get me wrong, but like your superstars are getting older. And
Yeah.
we've talked about this window a little bit. Like is it all the way open now? I'm not sure this is the most open it'll ever be. But I just see it as kind of take a swing now, like if you're going to push all your chips to the center of the table, I would do it now. So that's why I kind of feel like Snead is the guy that you turn to in a moment like this. That's the kind of move you make for a team that I don't think is that far from being a real serious contender. And that's why I'd be more comfortable, I think, making a move like that for L'Jarius Snead than going towards the draft, especially just because there aren't, I don't know, it all kind of hinges on the quarterback situation, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. But I mean, I don't know. I would like to see them take the bigger swing right now, because you just don't. I don't know. Trying to figure out how to word this. I just don't think entirely how close you're ever going to be again. And so I feel like you got to take these swings now while you've got TJ and you've got Kim and you've got Minka under contract, and you got to make your move now.
I agree with that. Just for starters, Cooper DeJean is a stud, okay? And it would also be so cool to watch the only white corner in the NFL outside of the only real one. Riley Moss, I still think is real up in the air. But even I remember sitting at a dinner with Mike Tomlin. I want to say it was this past year, maybe it was 2 years ago. And we're talking and he's like, man, dude, there's nothing that gets my juices flowing like getting to talk to a white corner and seeing how they work, because they got to work differently than everybody else. And I'm like, that would just be cool. Cooper DeJean it's just something about it. It's just something about it. I think I agree with you. If I had to go veteran versus rookie, depending on the rookie, like, if you're going to go one of these top two guys and it's somebody that you really feel could be a superstar instantly and make an impact, and you feel enough is left in the tank with Patrick Peterson, then okay, I could see that happening. If it's Patrick Peterson's going to move into the slot and this rookie's going to come in here and he's going to be your only option on the outside besides Corey Trice, I'm not totally sold on that move. I think that's when you bring in a veteran, and that makes a lot more sense, just because I agree with you. If the Steelers are going to make a push, you might as well put all your chips on the table and say, screw it, let's go make a push and see how far this could take us. And I think a veteran corner who's proven, who could come up big in these clutch moments, that's huge. I think it takes a lot of pressure off of Joey Porter Jr., who's going to be entering year 2, and there's always a sophomore slump. And I hope it's not there for Joey, but you always have to take that into account. I think you could look at both of those things and say that a veteran probably does make more sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think money-wise, it's not an issue. If you sign Mason Rudolph, I'm down here talking to a couple of people, and they're tossing out the $5 million mark, the 2 for $12 million mark. And
for Mason?
For Mason, that's like the
wow.
consensus number down here is 2 for 12 with maybe some incentives and like a roster bonus, so you make a little bit more. But if they could get something along those lines done, I don't think money's an issue. You're not into the 2 for 12. I'm all in for 2 for 12 is cheap.
I'm into it. Yeah, that's my point. That is pretty surprising to me. I don't know. For a quarterback that you could see as a starter, like that's real low. I mean, if you're the Steelers, you could go 7. You could go $8 million a year,
You'd
and
go
I
$8
would
million.
feel great about that. That would be incredible. Wow, that's pretty shocking.
I could say that it's a conversation that I've had with 2 or 3 people at this point. Three people at this point, and they're all people that there's levels. There's they know what they're talking about. They know what they're talking about, and then it kind of ended with when it comes to Mason Rudolph, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I think we both know who we're talking about here. And when he says things, you know, you got to believe it. You got to some degree, you got to be like, there's some truth there, because chances are that he just got off the phone with Mason Rudolph, you know, when they just had that conversation. But I think I agree. 2 for 12 I think that surpasses everything. Like, if you're getting 2 for 12 from Mason Rudolph, okay, sounds good. Like, that's fine. That's the quarterback. I feel really good about that situation. Which I guess is another news and note here down at the NFL Combine. Little tidbits that you pick up on in transit. I think that would be smooth. If that could happen, you go out and sign anybody you could get, you know?
Right.
And it doesn't matter who it is, except for like Chris Jones for $30 million, who people have tossed out there. And I'm like, that will never happen
also just
in
like
a million years.
Like, not necessary. Like, why would you?
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of other options at defensive tackle. That's not one that I think I would consider, but that's been tossed out there. Guys, we have gear, new merchandise from AST to Muth, Bleed Black and Gold, Kenny to George, and plenty of others now at our new website, blackandgoldapparel.com. And the coolest part, 50% of all profits at our store go to UPMC Children's Hospital here in Pittsburgh to make sure that we are giving back. We can't thank you guys enough, and we want to show you guys how thankful and how grateful we are for everything by making sure that we do our part to make the community here in Pittsburgh better. Go check out everything. We tried to make everything new and improved, from our designs to our quality of sweatshirts and t-shirts and everything else. Let us know and check everything out at blackandgoldapparel.com. And as always, thank you guys for everything. Another quarterback name, as we talk about the quarterbacks here, Plaxico Burress, former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver, former Super Bowl champion with the New York Giants. Had to toss that one out there because Stephen Thompson grew up a New England Patriots fan. Mentioned a quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers that he thinks is a fit. You were watching the video, watching him talk about it. Sam Darnold is the name. Says he is not a Ben Roethlisberger or a young Big Ben, but he fits. He fits the mold of what they're looking for. Could be good enough. You hear that name, what was your reaction when you first saw it? Because when you texted me it, my immediate thought was, yeah, no. But maybe you had something different.
No, I didn't. I think I texted you this more out of, wow, look at how silly this is, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to be mean, but I don't know. This is not an option at all in my mind. I don't think this does anything for the Steelers. I don't really think this even does anything for Sam Darnold. Like, he's not better than Kenny Pickett. I mean, as much as people don't like Kenny Pickett, this guy is not that much better or better at all. He is at best a career backup at a time when the Steelers need like a splash. I mean, like I said, like, this is when we're talking quarterbacks for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think you need a ceiling raiser, and Sam Darnold is anything but. I think at best he is someone who could keep you at this level. And that was, I think, part of what Plexico was trying to say. He said he was a fit. You know, that was he might not be, like you said, a young Ben Roethlisberger, but he's a fit. And I don't need a fit right now. I need a guy who can elevate this team. I need a guy who can make this team better. I need a guy who can, I don't know, not just like play within the system, not just be a game manager, not just let his defense, kind of win games for him while he dinks and dunks and gets you just enough. Like, you need a ceiling raiser. And I get it. You're not going to be able to. The AFC is just in a weird spot right now, and I think we're all in a weird spot coming off of the Super Bowl, because it feels like Patrick Mahomes is just kind of inevitable. Like, there's no quarterback in the league that's better than him, and right now it's hard to imagine a quarterback exists in the league right now that can beat him in a Super Bowl. And you're not going to recruit a guy. So by that very nature, you're not going to recruit a guy who can beat him, but you need someone better than Sam Darnold. I don't understand how this is a fit even at all. I don't understand how this guy is even on anyone's radar. I don't understand what kind of fit this constitutes and how it makes the Steelers better.
I don't know if he's on anybody's radar to begin with. Like, I just don't know if that's I've heard him tossed out there for the Steelers. That's it. That's the only team that I've seen Sam Darnold associated with all offseason long. It doesn't. You're exactly right with the ceiling raiser. You need a ceiling raiser, and maybe that ceiling raiser is Mason Rudolph. Maybe it's just a better Kenny Pickett. Who knows? I can tell you right now that Sam Darnold's not walking into the Steelers locker room or going to the South Side and beating Kenny Pickett out in a battle. They're not going to Latrobe and Sam Darnold's your week 1 starter. That's just not going to happen. Kenny Pickett has won more games in the NFL, has looked better at times than Sam Darnold does. I just not a guy that I think fits anything for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think there are so many other, like, I don't know, if we're going to be honest, I'm bringing Ryan Tannehill in and saying that makes more sense than Sam Darnold. I'm drafting somebody and saying that makes more sense than Sam Darnold. And again, I agree that Sam Darnold is a quality backup, good for what you're looking for if you're a team like the San Francisco 49ers or, I don't know, the New York, if he wants to go back to the New York Jets or wherever. He's not coming to Pittsburgh and competing for a starting job. Like, if July comes around and the Steelers already have 2 guys that are competing and they're like, well, we could use a third, and Sam wants to come to Pittsburgh and be a third, cool, all for it. But as a starter, there's just like, I just don't get how you could pick somebody. There are so many guys out there.
Right.
Why is nobody tossed out like so many quarterbacks? Like, why is nobody? If you're going to toss out Sam Darnold, toss out Tyrod Taylor, toss out, I don't know, who's the dude in LA in Vegas?
Yeah.
Aiden O'Connell. Yeah. Toss out literally anybody who has started a game over the last 2 or 3 seasons and say, well, maybe they could work too. Who knows? Because if that's where the bar is, I mean, there's just nothing here that says Sam Darnold starting quarterback for the Steelers.
Right. I think you make the perfect point. I was thinking that like if they already have 2 guys, if like Sam Darnold is your surefire third quarterback, sure.
Yeah.
Like whatever. Like who cares? But like the idea that at this point in the offseason you would reach for Sam Darnold for what reason? Like he hasn't done anything in his career that makes you think this guy is going to, I don't know, elevate our team, make it better. He is at best an insurance plan. And that is being very generous, I think, given what Sam Darnold has done in his career.
I agree. He's not even a good insurance plan. Like he's well, we have him, Like what's the difference between having Sam Darnold and Mitch Trubisky on your roster? Mitch Trubisky. Like that's the difference is you saw that Mitch Trubisky didn't work out. You haven't had Sam Darnold yet. That is the only separator between the two. That one doesn't make any sense. Plaxico, man, you won some Super Bowls. You know what to do. This one's wrong. This one is, but Plaxico's had some bold takes out there. He was a big pusher, big proponent of Steelers should hire Byron Leftwich. He's out here saying Sam Darnold. Just, maybe it's a good
Maybe
thing,
that's what we're not thinking. Maybe Byron Leftwich could have fixed Sam Darnold, and we're not considering that. Maybe that was going to be his next take, and
if either of them are in the NFL next year, if Sam Darnold is a starting quarterback and Byron Leftwich is an offensive coordinator next year, I will admit I'm wrong. But when neither of those things happen, we will ignore this and keep moving. Other odds and ends as we move forward. Day 1 of the NFL Combine. It was a blast out here. Won't lie to you. We'll say this. You know how last year was those like real soggy sandwiches for lunch? And I'm sorry, I don't want to be doing this to you because
oh my god,
I do wish you not. No,
dude, I ate the same turkey and cheese sandwich every day for a week.
I will say that it's still box lunches. It's still box lunches. But today was like a very delicious chicken Caesar wrap with like a little bit of some fruit, dude. The fruit was so good. The cookie was fantastic. I was like, man, dude, this is I felt bad. Everything positive that was happening, I'm just like, this is super upsetting. I wanted to like text our boss and be like, hey, you really messed up here, man. Yeah. Like this is just cruel. But they're good. But day 1 down here doing well. Hopefully Omar Khan talks at some point. Some other odds and ends here. John Harbaugh spoke, Baltimore Ravens. I said this to you guys before we started. John Harbaugh walked by me after the podium and he's up on the podium. You can't really tell. And maybe I'm totally off here because the man he was walking next to was ginormous. Just 3 human beings in one, pretty sure. John Harbaugh is a very tiny man. Very, very not very big man. Like smaller than me.
Which I'm just shocked because he does not come across that way on TV. Like no. He doesn't, and maybe I just don't watch him like, standing next to, don't they have like Orlando Brown or something? Like, so
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
like know like, okay, what does John Harbaugh look like against like a normal person? But I was shocked.
I agree. I did a double take. I was like, was that John Harbaugh? What is this? That's a baby man. That's a child man. That's very tiny, very tiny. He dropped two little tidbits here. One of them's on Mike Tomlin. Was asked if he was shocked by all of the nonsense that was happening at the end of the season, talking about Mike Tomlin stepping away from the team and considering a change of scenery and so on and so forth. And he pretty much said how great Mike Tomlin is and the competition between the two and what Mike Tomlin has done for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the NFL as a whole. And then said pretty much, no, I'm not surprised by it. No, I never expect that he ever will leave the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's early. We're 8 months, 9 months out from this conversation happening again, but it will happen again. And there will be reports from Florio and everybody else talking about, well, Mike Tomlin's going to consider going to the Chargers and the Washington Commanders and every other vacancy out there. Can we put it to bed early? Because I think it's very clear that at this point in the NFL, nobody inside the NFL cares about that, nor believes any of it at all.
Well, I mean, does John Harbaugh know that Mike Tomlin's from Virginia, so he could,
And his wife loves LA. Loves
right?
LA.
So I would bring that up with John before we kind of put this to bed just yet. I'm not sure he knew all the facts of the situation.
That is true. That is true. Nobody included that in the question. I will go tell Joe Rutter of the Trib Review, look at man, next time you're going to ask a question, you make sure all the facts are in that question, and then you ask the question. But yeah, it's a good time to put that away. I'm very thankful for John for just tossing that one to the side there as early as humanly possible and getting that out of the way so that we can move on. We could definitely move on. The other tidbit he tossed out there, or it wasn't him actually, it was Eric DaCosta, their general manager, was talking about the Steelers' new linebacker, Jeremiah Moon, who they signed. They claimed off of waivers prior to the Super Bowl. They officially got him after the Super Bowl. Then they agreed to a new contract with him the other day. And he said, quote, Jeremiah is a very hard-charging guy, good on special teams. I think he's a developmental outside backer, strong and physical, great attitude, and I think he's gonna have a great career, definitely. The Steelers already have a couple of really good outside linebackers. Do you think that Moon is, for one, a possible replacement for Marcus Golden, who is set to be a free agent, and two, is this just another building block that people should be kind of optimistic for when it comes to the Steelers?
Well, I think I'm optimistic about him. Just like as a player, like not even necessarily within the context of the Steelers. Like he seems like a good athlete. The special teams experience is valuable. And he's young too. Like there's room to grow. This guy is, I think he's only spent 2 seasons as a pro, and he's only really played for 1 season. So I think there's like definitely room for him. I kind of hope he's not a replacement for Marcus Golden, just because I really like Marcus Golden. Like I think Marcus Golden, I think he's like a good player, and I think a really valuable backup. Like I think he could be a starter in a bunch of places, and he's even more valuable as a backup here in Pittsburgh. So kind of hope not. But I think just as a player, I think I can see the upside. It might not be in Pittsburgh. It's almost, I don't know. I don't want to say it's definitely not going to be in Pittsburgh, but I feel like this guy has a chance somewhere, and I kind of hope he gets. I'm interested to see what he does in camp and during the preseason, because this guy's going to make himself some money somewhere. I'd have to assume. I think he's could have a good training camp and see a different opportunity somewhere else, maybe.
I agree. When it comes to the Marcus Golden piece, I think that Marcus Golden's the man. I think that the only disadvantage that you have when it comes to Marcus Golden is that he isn't a special teamer, and you want some special teams help. I think Nick Herbig and the step that he might be able to take in year 2 could kind of, I don't want to say escort, but could kind of push the envelope to say, okay, we need a 4th guy who is a special teams heavy guy. And I think that's where Moon could come into place. I like the young athletic guys. I think worst case scenario, this guy ends up on the practice squad and you feel really good about it. But just the fact that he comes from Baltimore. Baltimore is just like Pittsburgh. They produce good linebackers. I think that always, makes you kind of feel good about who they bring in and the opportunities that they have with this guy. And I also think that you're going to lose a couple of core special teamers this year that you're going to want to try and replace. Like, a guy like Elijah Riley probably won't be back in Pittsburgh in 2024. Miles Killebrew is set to be a free agent. You don't know what's going to happen there. That's a huge name to watch. You don't know if Mark Robinson's going to be on the roster again in 2024, because how many years are you going to give him before you start looking for other options at inside linebacker? Like, there are so many names that you're going to want to look at. And I mean, Rodney Williams, there's no chance you're keeping 4 tight ends around in 20. Like, that's just not going to happen. I think that you look at all those pieces and you say, this is something that you could value. I love Marcus Golden, would love Marcus Golden to come back. But I think Nick Herbig's development kind of leaves the door open for a guy like Moon. And I think that's promising for the Steelers. Somebody who's that young, to have a young core like that would be, that would be really nice for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially if they're all good. A couple of years ago, it was a young core that was terrible. Now a young core that's pretty good. It'd be nice. It'd be a good side, different side of the coin.
Yeah, definitely be a different different feeling around the Steelers linebackers room, and that would, Moon. I think that's a great point about Herbig. Like, if he comes along, it changes the calculus quite a bit.
Sorry, had to take a sip of water there. Somebody walked by, caught me off guard. Yes, I agree. All right, last thing I want to talk about here, last news and notes from the NFL Combine Day 1. Falcons general manager, man, I'm going to be real bad at this name. I texted it to you guys earlier. It is Terry Fontenot. I hope I said that right. Yeah, I don't know. We're going to take a shot on that one. If I ever cover the Atlanta Falcons, if we ever find ourselves in Atlanta as beat reporters, we'll have to apologize, or at least I'll have to apologize to our man Terry. But he tossed out a little bit of love for Arthur Smith, for Pittsburgh Steelers' new offensive coordinator, saying, quote, "Yeah, I love Arthur Smith, and we spent 3 years together, and we were like brothers, and we had a really collaborative relationship. Love Arthur, love his family, and we're rooting for him going to Pittsburgh." And look, Arthur is, if you spend any time with him, you can tell right away he's a smart guy, and all he's worried about is making that football team better. And so I've gotten to talk to Coach Tomlin over the last few weeks to now being with Raheem and the relationship he has with Mike Tomlin. But I know they're going to have a really good relationship, and they're going to do everything they can do to make that team as good as they can. Rave reviews. Raheem Morris also said later that he wouldn't be up there if the Falcons didn't have a quarterback situation that was probably not up to par. So I think that bodes well for those who had the question of, was it Arthur Smith or was it Desmond Ridder? Probably means that it was more Desmond Ridder than Arthur Smith. You hear some kind words about the Steelers' new OC, especially coming from Atlanta. I think to a degree it's expected, but still, when it's of that magnitude, what were your thoughts?
Well, this was the first text you got, right, after Arthur Smith was hired, was, I don't know, I forget the
great
exact
character
wording.
guy.
Yeah. It was great character guy. So not surprising. Good to hear. I think especially on the quarterback front, I feel like that's the more notable thing. Is that I think everyone in Atlanta kind of acknowledges that this wasn't wholly Arthur Smith's issue. I think there's still some concerns I had about player usage outside the quarterback realm, but I think that does alleviate some of the concerns I had. Not completely, but a little bit. Does a little bit of work there to make me feel a little bit better about what he could do in the right scenario with kind of the right supporting cast around him in the right role. How he could develop a quarterback, how he could get a young guy like a Kenny Pickett up to speed and into the right spot. So encouraging for sure. If not that surprising, although.
Yeah, I agree. I don't expect anybody to ever go out there and be like, yeah, man, garbage. Arthur Smith, terrible. I don't understand how he got an offensive coordinator job. But it's still good to hear. I think the Morris saying his part about the quarterback situation struck me a little bit harder, but hearing that high of praise about, hey, it didn't work out, but this guy is really smart and has all the tangibles. I think, like we've said a number of times, sometimes it's just easier to be an offensive coordinator than it is to be a head coach in the NFL. And in this situation, I think maybe that's just where Arthur Smith is. And I think that it's very hard to acknowledge that sometimes. But when it's coming from the general manager, when it's coming from the guy who hired you, who then fired you, it's probably meaningful that he says, hey, look, this dude's really good at his job. He just wasn't good at the job we gave him. And I think that means a ton, and I take that as a vote of confidence that should leave Steelers fans feeling pretty good, feeling pretty optimistic about what their new OC brings to the table. With that, that's all the no's and notes that I got from day one. Quiet day, no Omar Khan. Hopefully we get to talk to him at some point this week. But again, we will wait and see. Very delicate situation over there with the Khan family. Moving forward tomorrow, defensive linemen, linebackers. I think that's it. I was telling you earlier, probably could have showed up on Thursday, said, hey, what's up with the corners, and then left. But it's good to spend a week down at the NFL Combine. I'm very excited to be down here. We'll have more for you guys on, what's today, Tuesday? So on Friday. Yeah, so we will have more for you guys on Friday, bringing everything that we got down here at the NFL Combine. With that said, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, check all of our stuff out at allsteelers.com. We have, I think, a dozen stories going on from just today alone, and we didn't even talk to anybody. So that means that there is plenty of action coming over the next 4 or 5 days down here in Indianapolis. Steven will be holding it down at InsideThePanthers.com with all the pit coverage over there in the city of Pittsburgh. Like I said, we will be back on Friday. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.